What's going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Coach Mike Dove, here with another edition of the Lockdown Defense Sports Studio. And if you've been tuning in the last few weeks, you know that we are rolling on with our team previews as we lead up to training camp. So time is flying by. It's already June, late June, heading into July. Training camp is just about a month away. So we're getting this much closer to the season actually being here and to actually seeing if our predictions are going to come true, and we're rolling right along. We're doing the AFC North this week. If you've been tuning in, you've seen us knock out other teams, other conferences, and we got a good one for you coming up. So I have the privilege of kicking things off with none other than the defending AFC North champion, Baltimore Ravens. And they are, as they have been in previous years, the cream of the crop when it comes to this division. Of course, if you've been following the news, if you've been following everything that's going on, this division has been heavily involved in a lot of different things going on in the offseason, from the Browns to the Bengals to even recent trades with the Steelers. The one thing that's been consistent is the North will be the North, right? And the Ravens will be the Ravens. They're going to be a consistent franchise through in and throughout. So we're going to break down what their season prediction is going to look like. We're going to go over all their off-season off-season moves, all kinds of things like that. Let me know in your comments what you think, if you agree, disagree. But without further ado, we're going to get right into how the Ravens are looking headed into training camp this year. So first and foremost, of course, we got to start out with our free agency signings, right? So thinking about our free agency signings, they started out with a bang. They went for, one of the most known, most notable receivers out there right now. The Ravens have always been criticized for not really making a big splash at the wide receiver position. They've had almost superstars at every other position, but wide receiver is just one that the Ravens, for some reason, and I won't say that, it's a necessarily bad thing, but they just prefer to, I guess not, or maybe they don't prefer it, but they just have yet to have that superstar number one bona fide receiver. And if they do get him, then a lot of times they get him at the back end of their career, like a Steve Smith, that we've seen there before. This is no different. DeAndre Hopkins, of course, for years, he was looked at as one of the best, if not the best receivers in the league, but we know he's at the tail end of his career. He had some flashes last year with Kansas City. He's bounced around a few teams recently. The question is, which DeAndre Hopkins are they going to get in Baltimore? Like I said, he is at the back end of his career. He's fought through some injuries, isn't as twitchy as he used to be, still has the hands that he needs to have. But the question is, which Hopkins are they getting? Are they getting 2015, 2016, prime DeAndre? Probably not. But will they get a guy who can compete, be a solid number two receiver to their number one guy, Zay Flowers, who's coming back from injury? I think he can be solid in certain points. I think he can be a nice third down option for Lamar. So I think he will be serviceable. Of course, will he be what we've known him to be? Maybe not. But hopefully he won't fall into that. I guess that trend of, like I said, over the hill wide receivers that the Ravens tend to go after. You saw Odell had a spark when he was there. I mentioned Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden in the past. So yeah, the Ravens have had a little bit of a track history, a little bit of a track record of going after guys a little bit after their prime. But we'll see where DeAndre Hopkins fits in. Of course, Cooper Rush, that's just a roster filler. Don't think he'll see the field much, if any, if they're lucky, unless it's a blowout. Of course, then maybe he'll come in. But the key is just going to be them staying healthy. And I mentioned that because obviously their starters are their guys. They didn't shake too much up. Their bread and butter is with their quarterback, Lamar, who is arguably the best quarterback in the league. You can make an argument for him up there with Mahomes, of course, up there with Josh Allen. He's in the battle for in that top three position consistently, no matter who you ask. And this year will be no different. I love the signing of Owuze, not just the free agency signings that they did on their defensive backs, but also we're going to talk about the draft and how they really approached the draft defensively. I think they had one of, if not the best drafts this year. But I love the signing from Owuze, a former Bengal. So they're taking him. And I think he adds much needed depth to that secondary. Of course, the key is going to be for all these teams, no matter who you are, but staying healthy. And when you have depth, that gives you a little bit more wiggle room as far as, keeping guys healthy. And God forbid, if somebody does go down, you got someone else there to take that next step. Of course, they had to sign their bookend, Ronnie Stanley. who was one of the best tackles in the league. Next best thing next to your quarterback has to be the guy that protects him. So I love the fact that they brought him back. And of course, just the normal turnover. You're going to have some people, go. Some people go to different opportunities. But I will say I don't think that they lost anything. I can't pinpoint one position where I feel like they got worse or went backwards. So I like the free agency signings. I like the re-signings. I like where they're headed. I talked a little bit about this draft class, and I'm just going to highlight really about 3 or 4 names that I really liked about this. Obviously, the number one pick, Malachi Starks, which is one of the reasons why they were able to let Marcus Williams go. I think that can be a upgrade for them in that secondary position, partnering him with Hamilton, who's already one of the best young safeties. That's a great mixture there. And then they also addressed their edge rusher, Mike Green, high ceiling guy, super high ceiling guy. What better place to bring him into than the Baltimore Ravens, a great organization. He's going to learn under great people. He's going to learn a great culture. So I love that pick as well. Emory Jones is another one. People sleep on this pick right here. Tackle from LSU. Once again, people don't really realize how important it is to rebuild your offensive line before it gets completely depleted, and also to add depth to that offensive line. I think he's going to come in and contribute and be a great pick for them. And the fact they got him in the third round was a great pickup. And the last one that I'm going to touch on, arguably the pick that I love the most from them. Actually, there's two more I'm going to touch on, but the pick that I love the most from them is LeJontay Wester. I talked about DeAndre Hopkins and how it was a solid pickup. I don't love it. Do I think it moves the needle for them wide receiver wise? Not necessarily, but what does move the needle for them? They brought back Bateman, who had a great year last year, and I think LeJontay Wester, who's going to have a great year this year. I think he's somebody that's going to move that needle. I think towards the end of the season, we're going to see him coming in as a great contributor. Like I said, it's going to be important for Zay Flowers to come back healthy. But once he does, I think this could be potentially the best receiving core that we've seen Lamar have throughout his entire career from top to bottom. I really like this receiver room a lot better than they looked last year. To me, the receivers and the DBs, those have been the two areas that they've improved the most. And I think that is going to be exciting to see. I mean, listen, they already have Derrick Henry back there in the backfield. They got a solid offensive line. It's going to be exciting to see these guys. Like I said, look out for LeJontay Wester. I think he's going to come in and be a great pickup for them. And to get Garrett Dillinger in the seventh round, I didn't think he would slip that far. Obviously, him being a seventh round pick, we might not see too much of him. But I was surprised that he slipped that far. The Ravens, they did a great job at picking him up at that pick. That's a high value for that pick. Once again, you can't go wrong with filling out that depth of the offensive line and in the trenches. The fact that they had no significant trades or coaching changes actually says a lot more to me, to this team, than it would for some of the teams that had significant trades and coaching changes. And the reason is because if you watch the Ravens play, not only last year, but in the past few years, they're knocking right at that door. There's not much that needs to happen for them to get over the hump, especially given how they lost and some of the heartbreaking times that they've had to, in their season in disappointing fashion. This is the year. The window is definitely very small in professional sports. It's there for them right now. I think this is probably one of, if not the best rosters that they have had, like I mentioned, throughout the Lamar Jackson era, by far. So I think the time is now for not only Lamar, but the rest of that locker room, because it's not just on Lamar. Lamar gets a lot of blame a lot of the time. But if you watch them play, like I said, if you watched the Bills game, which ended their season this year, that wasn't on Lamar. Of course, as the quarterback, you're going to get a majority of the blame. You're going to get the shoulder of the brunt. But I think that as collectively as a team, they have to learn how to win. They have to learn how to get over the hump before we even start talking about Kansas City. They got to get past Buffalo. They got to get, it's very important, and we'll talk about the schedule coming up pretty soon. Very important that they try to solidify home field advantage so that they can play these teams in Baltimore, not have to travel to these difficult environments. But I say all that to say they have everything that they need in the building at the end of the season. I think they believe that as well. This team has gotten better, so I don't think they needed any significant changes or coaching changes. That being said, taking a look at their schedule, pretty standard schedule. I don't see any major, games or hiccups that they'll need to circle. Of course, opening up with Buffalo, that's a huge game, and then turning around, they have Detroit, they have Houston, and of course Kansas City again. So they play everybody that that they're going to see in the next round or in the playoffs, I should say. All the teams that could potentially be hurdles for them, they have a chance to see them during the regular season, which is good for them. So they'll be able to, get it out their system, get film on them. So that's actually a very positive thing that they play pretty much the only teams that are standing in their way. When you look at Houston, um, Buffalo, and Kansas City. Obviously, Detroit being a team that was good last year, they're in a different conference, so that's another barometer that they can measure themselves up. Also, if you look at the Minnesota game, that's another game. Minnesota's a team that I think will be very good this year. So you're going to want to hold yourself to that standard as well. So there are a couple of games on there that you want to look at. Divisional games. This is an especially tough division. They always go at it. Of course, everybody knows about the Ravens Steelers matchups. The Bengals are not going to be easy. The Browns, even though there's a lot of controversy around the other three teams in the conference and the other three teams in the division, uh, listen, it's never going to be easy. It's always going to be a battle. It's always going to be tough. It's always going to be hard hitting. The elements are always going to play a factor in it. So this is going to be no different. This year's not going to be any different. There's talent all across the league, all across the division. I wouldn't say that any of those games are a gimme, but I definitely think by far that the Raven team is the best team roster wise on paper throughout this division. So I look to them to be around a 12-win team, 12, 13-win team. I looked at them to be, once again, the cream of the crop of not only their division, winning their division, but one of the better teams, both in the conference and potentially the NFL, just because, like I said, this is a team that's built to win now. They're a championship pedigree team. I think that they have all the tools that they need. They are one of my contenders. They will be on my short list if I had to give my preseason predictions for the Super Bowl. And I think, like I said, the floor for them is a 12-win team, 13-win team. We may even see them, go even further. But I will say that to me, this is a Super Bowl or bust season for the Ravens. Does that mean that they clean house if they don't make it? Absolutely not. I don't believe that. I don't believe that Harbaugh's job is on the line if he doesn't win the Super Bowl. But I think collectively, as a unit and as a team, their goal has to be a Super Bowl winning, not a Super Bowl appearance. But if they do not win a Super Bowl, I think that they fall short of expectations for this team. And I will say that I think this team has everything that they need to contend for a Super Bowl. So that's my prediction. I think that they will be at the very least, in the Final Four, and potentially going even further. We'll see how things happen when training camp happens, when training camp opens here in just about a month. But I can see the Ravens making a deep run into the playoffs, potentially a Super Bowl appearance. And off-season grades, I give them a solid B plus, A minus. I'm going to go ahead and bump it up to, you know what? I'm going to bump it up to an A. I'm going to give them an A for all-season grade, simply because they didn't need much. Like we said, no major coaching changes, no major trades, but the holes that they improved a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And then also, I love the moves that they made with wide receiver, bringing back Bateman. Needs Zay Flowers to get healthy, of course. But other than that, signing Hopkins is a solid vet, but LaJohntay Wester, I love that pickup. So I'm going to give them an A, almost an A plus. They had a great offseason, and I think that offseason is going to set the tone for them to make a deep run in the playoffs. So that's my prediction for the Baltimore Ravens. Let us know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Will Lamar make another push to have another MVP title season? Will he finally get over the hump? I'm all tuned in for this season. I'm looking forward to it. Let me know your thoughts, comment, follow us, and we will see you later for another review at the Lockdown Defense Sports Studio.